3 years ago, the internet was full of one message: wake up earlier, sleep later, grind harder. If you're tired, work anyway. If you're relaxing, you're falling behind. The hustle culture era turned exhaustion into a badge of honor. But something strange is happening now. The same people who once celebrated 5 a.m. alarms, 16-hour workdays, and constant productivity are suddenly talking about burnout, rest, and boundaries. The motivational posts are slowly being replaced by quiet confessions. I'm tired. So the question is no longer just about work ethic. The question is psychological. Is hustle culture actually dying? Or are our minds simply reaching their limit? For years, hustle culture operated on a powerful psychological reward system. Every completed task, every late night, every small success triggered a dopamine response in the brain. Dopamine is the chemical associated with motivation and anticipation. When people chased goals, money, promotions, or recognition, their brains rewarded the effort with a small rush of satisfaction. This created a loop. Work harder, feel rewarded. Achieve something, feel validated. Repeat the cycle. At first, this system feels energizing. It gives people a sense of purpose, direction, and identity. The problem is that the brain was never designed to operate in permanent achievement mode. Human psychology evolved around cycles of effort and recovery. Our nervous system expects periods of intense activity followed by rest. Hustle culture quietly removed the second part of that equation. Instead of recovery, people were taught to push through fatigue. Sleep became negotiable. Rest became laziness. Even relaxation started to feel like a waste of time. Over time, the brain begins to experience something psychologists call cognitive overload. Too many demands, too many goals, too much pressure competing for attention. When this happens repeatedly without recovery, the brain enters a state known as burnout. Burnout is not just being tired. It is a psychological shutdown mechanism. Motivation drops. Concentration becomes difficult. Tasks that once felt exciting start to feel meaningless. The brain, essentially, pulls the emergency brake. One reason burnout is becoming so widespread is the collision between hustle culture and modern digital life. Social media constantly exposes people to the achievements of others. Someone is always launching a business, buying a house, traveling the world, or announcing a new milestone. This creates a psychological phenomenon called upward comparison. Instead of measuring progress against our past selves, we compare ourselves to thousands of people simultaneously. The brain interprets this as a signal that we are falling behind. And when humans feel they are falling behind in a competitive environment, the natural response is to work harder. Hustle culture amplified this instinct, turning it into a lifestyle. But there is a hidden psychological cost. When work becomes the only source of identity, any setback begins to feel like a threat to self-worth. A failed project is no longer just a professional loss. It feels like personal failure. Over time, this pressure builds until the mind starts resisting the very thing it once chased. This is why many people who once believed deeply in non-stop productivity are now questioning it. They are not becoming lazy. They are experiencing psychological fatigue. The brain is trying to restore balance. Interestingly, research in performance psychology shows that sustained high performers rarely operate in constant grind mode. Instead, they follow cycles of intense focus, followed by deliberate recovery. Athletes train hard, but they also schedule rest days. Creative professionals often produce their best ideas after stepping away from work. Even the brain's default mode network, the system responsible for insight and creativity, becomes more active during rest. In other words, the mind is not designed like a machine that runs endlessly. It behaves more like a battery that needs regular recharging. This shift in understanding may explain why hustle culture appears to be fading. People are starting to realize that endless grinding is not a sustainable strategy for long-term success or mental health. The conversation is slowly moving toward concepts like sustainable productivity, deep work, and psychological well-being. But this does not mean ambition is disappearing. Humans are naturally driven to create, improve, and achieve. What is changing is the relationship between effort and recovery. The new realization is that working smarter often means knowing when to stop. So hustle culture may not be dying completely. What we are witnessing might be something more interesting, a psychological correction. After years of pushing the mind beyond its limits, people are rediscovering something the brain has always known. Productivity without recovery eventually turns into burnout. And burnout, sooner or later, forces even the hardest workers to slow down.